The Apollo has been around for 85 years, and it is a beacon for the Harlem community.
This is where it all started. This is the original.
It's energy, it's talent at its best.
If you don't know about Amateur Night at the Apollo, I mean, what you in entertainment for?
Apollo means everything to me growing up as a kid. Watching black folk, get a chance to do their thing, and it just blows your mind. There's incredible DNA attached to it.
The Apollo has had quite an evolution over its 85 years. The doors opened in 1934, and it was one of the few theaters that you could see people of color on the stage as well as in the audience.
When you think about the stories and the artists that have graced the stage that we're sitting on now, it's immense.
Fast forward, as we think about the Apollo today, we are really the only performing arts center in the United States that focuses on the African American narrative.
It's a big part of our mission, not only to become a home for artists, but also a home for culture and culture building. As we think about the future of the Apollo, we hope to transform and build a new 21st century canon where African American voices do sit at the center.
The range of our work, the theater, the comedy, the dance, the festivals, I think it inspires.
When you see work here at the Apollo, you're seeing and experiencing a moment that can quite frankly happen at no other theater. We as an institution want to be able to support the development of the new work, the instigation of creativity.
For me, every day is a standout. Every day is a new reason to just explode with joy over the process that we're in.
I can't think of a better place as an African American artist to say, look who supports me.
Whether it's through song, whether it's through a play, to be nurtured in a space that strives for excellence is an amazing thing, and we need more of it.
Another way in which we've been a home for culture is through our education program. We're training young kids of color to run our cultural institutions of tomorrow.
The Apollo has helped me fully realize my love of the entertainment industry.
This place has showed me that there's no limits to what I can do.
We are expanding for the first time in our 85-year history.
We will have 2 new spaces at the Victoria Theater. And we hope that these new spaces fully allow us to stretch our wings even further to become a home and a hub of creativity 365 days out of the year.
There's no Harlem without the Apollo.
We need the Apollo for the future and all of the great people who are to come.
It deserves to be here and to be sustained.
The Apollo is in the business of creating and cultivating beautiful art, love, joy, and peace. If we can't get it at the Apollo, I don't know where else we can get it.
Hi, I'm Leatrice Elsie, Senior Director of Programming at the Apollo Theater. Thank you for joining us for this Apollo New Works preview. Apollo New Works is a multidisciplinary commissioning program with a focus on the development of a diverse 21st century American performing arts canon. This initiative further extends the Apollo's ongoing commitment to examining and elevating the Black narrative. We begin with Apollo executive producer Camilla Forbes talking Harlem, creativity, and the Renaissance, past and present, with director Talvin Wilks and Black Gotham's Kamau Ware.
Wow. Watching that dancer, Snake Hips legend move like that, I'm number one, I'm so shocked that is 100 years from now, because I feel like I could go on to 125th Street or any street in Brooklyn and see a dancer move in a similar fashion. But it's also, so it really speaks to sort of the relationship point between then and now, and sort of the continuum of culture, which is also a big theme from the Apollo standpoint, which is why over a year ago, we commissioned over 20 artists to respond to the Harlem Renaissance and to the Renaissance then, but also responding as artists as a part of a Renaissance now. And that piece is very much representative as an archival relic of the time period. And so, I'm really also excited to help to contextualize these commissions even further, because they've been in development over the last year and will continue. We will see the nurturing of these works, the incubation of these works in this next upcoming season as well. I'm so proud to also bring on brilliant director, dramaturg, and all around one of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Talvin Wilks, to talk a little bit further about this.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me to sort of reflect and look at that video footage of Snake Hips and talk about how that's going to fit into the ongoing furthering idea of our commissioned project.
That's right. That's right. I mean, it's interesting, Talvin, because just watching that, I know that you've been doing an extensive amount of research, just as your dramaturgical brain. Sometimes I just want to swim around and just learn, but an extensive amount of research in this time period, but particularly as it relates to movement. And that piece is kind of emblematic of that. And I don't know if you can share a little bit of your journey around research and some of the nuggets that you might have discovered.
Well, absolutely, because we've been talking about the framing of a particular white paper sort of on the period and how that can be utilized in a way to inform our understanding that when we talk about the Renaissance, we're really talking about a construct, actually, and we're talking about hopefully a decade of work, if we want to frame it beginning in 1920, 1921, and moving past the crash of 29 and sort of into the early 30s, that's one of the vibrant periods of what we would call the new Negro movement, which is really, or the new Negro Renaissance, which is really about sort of the artistic era of a pre-political new Negro movement, which was really quite powerful in dealing with a type of activism at that time. So I feel like our scholarship in this moment really allows us to broaden this idea of the concept and the language of a literary renaissance, an artistic renaissance at this particular time. And even at that time where music was not necessarily embedded in the full cultural concept, but in our vantage point, we actually know that music is actually one of the vibrant, creative, generative impacts of how Black artists were framing and reframing image, identity, culture, and history.
And there's something really interesting that you also, in your meditation on that white paper, where you talked about the Renaissance and you talked about, but even more broadly, I took it more broadly. And the quote is that the Harlem Renaissance is an essential movement, but what we learn is that revolution has to be curated. It doesn't just happen. It is conjured, believed, doubted, debated. It is established and elusive.
Yes.
And it's that one piece that I find just so, every time I think about it and read it, it gives me chills. Just given the position that we stand in as storytellers, as creators of cultures, as, and folks within an institution, this idea of curating revolution, of curating Renaissance. I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's my delicious way of trying to claim everyone who comments on the Renaissance, even, post the period, when you have Langston saying it really didn't amount to much because it didn't impact the wages of the folks living in Harlem at that time. Alain Locke, is saying, it never really did amount to much of anything, that's something that we actually do to ourselves inside of, our own understanding of these generative movements that, just immediately after what one would claim was the heart of that cultural creative period, we already have the critics and the doubters and the deniers. We have the next generation coming in. Richard Wright, in fact, saying, sort of evaluating the work as not being as literarily significant as it professes to be. And then as we move more and more time, you have next generations rediscovering and reclaiming the importance and the significance of it, and being able to understand how it was a part of the modernist movement and, sort of the Africanist movement, and all of these things were vital and vibrant. And we go back and we, even the reclaiming of Zora and the importance of her that happens, sort of in the Black women's feminist movement, literary movement, led by Alice Walker. So there's always this idea of denying, reclaiming, and the hope is that we're really moving it into something you said earlier about this understanding of the importance of the continuum. And I've just enjoyed it, Camilla, the whole research of, Henry Louis Gates saying one thing, and then, you sort of get sort of a whole other sense of a kind of a literary understanding of the period, and people really, even sort of the queering of the Renaissance, and really making sure that we validate the understanding of, LGBTQIA ideas that are happening in that moment that really influence our contemporary ideas of queerness, saying that as a Black queer man, that the vitality of what we actually can claim inside of that history now that was so present and clear and but in code and in language and, defiant and also framed. And so we're able to actually celebrate all of that, I feel, in this particular contemporary moment. It's like one of my last lines that I'm still working on is this notion of from Renaissance to permanence. Yes. That's the claim. That's the ultimate claim that I feel our generation, there's no need for another Renaissance. We now understand this as the permanence inside of the cultural history of the United States. I feel that's what we're doing. I feel that's what the commissions are about. I feel that's what the Apollo leadership inside of this moment is about. That's what the Apollo is about as, an anchor institution inside of this culture and history. Forevermore, shall I say?
Forevermore. Well, what you've just done is really brought us and really made a distinct relationship point from then and now, and sort of our culture, our contemporary rooting, and how much we can also learn from whence we came, right? But speaking about that, from whence we came, Snake Hips and the project you're working on under your brilliant direction. Can you just talk a little bit about that journey?
Absolutely. It's a continuum. It's part of a continuum. The initial commission, I was working with Little Buck and John Boogs inside of this evolution, and I am now framing what I'm calling the prequel event, which is really rooted inside of I'm going to call it my directorial dramaturgy in the way that we were looking at the work. And it all was prompted by a statement that that Buck said of snake hips is in our DNA. And we really sort of focused in on snake hips inside of this category that they use called eccentric dance, in which everyone is just sort of framed and shaped inside of that. If you're not just a straight tapper or hoofer, they can't frame you inside of any other kind of dance form. And it's just full of so many dancers, innovators, characters, the corkscrew, the shimmy, the shaky leg, all of these nuanced vernacular dances and interpretations that men and women were doing, at that time, seems to be important to the idea of this work and important to the idea of lineage and continuum, that snake hips is in our DNA as we travel through all of the dance forms and expressions, all the way into reason why we're having that conversation around Memphis juking and popping and locking. We were looking at the lineage of our artistry connected to Earl Snake Hips Tucker.
There it is. Well, I am so excited to continue this journey and be an observer on this journey with you, Talvin, as you breathe new life. I was in a conversation with the director Kwame Kweyama, and he talked about multidisciplinary, but even as you talk about snake hips, eccentric dance, it's almost like he started using this term anti-disciplinary. How do we blur the lines? And we see it then, and we see it now. And you consistently blur the lines to bring us someplace new. So I'm so excited to see where you bring us with this work.
Right.
So thank you so much, Talvin.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the conversation. And I am really excited about the next phase of the exciting idea of looking at snake hips in our DNA. Just one last thing, sort of as I've been asking artists to think about and interpret this idea. I won't give any names, but it's just been amazing how many people immediately move into that gestural vernacular. He is known and studied inside of, all of our bodies who are really committed to the understanding of that history. So it's just been very exciting to have that next phase of conversation with new collaborators. Yep.
Yes, discover it all. Well, this is going to be very exciting, Talvin.
All right. No,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Well, it's always so great to talk about Talvin because he immerses us in history and its relevancy to now, which is even more so of a gift to speak with a brilliant artist, Mr. Kamau Ware. He is the founder and lead creative of the Black Gotham Experience, to talk about the future.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Kamau. How are you?
Awesome. Always great to see you. Always better when I get a chance to speak with you.
Always. Likewise. So, I've always been so taken when I first found out about Black Gotham Experience. The concept of it blew my mind. This idea of walking tours and history and the interactivity. But can you tell me a little bit how you describe the Black Gotham Experience?
You know what? That's a timely, fantastic question. We've all had some time to think and do some updating. And we've actually have gone 10 years and didn't have an official mission statement. We had a description of what we are, but we began to think as we hit our 10-year anniversary last summer, and now we are officially 11 years old, just looking at how we really are a creative intervention in the way that Black stories are being told, in particular the African diaspora, by creating visuals to step into those gaps that we have. So we use walks and talks and media to create those interventions, but really we're creating a collection of new images to tell stories about our past.
I love that. And I love that you use the language of intervention, right? Because it's almost, when I think of the type of experience that Black Gotham brings, it is it's almost a remix, if you will, right? It's a true reimagining and looking at history through another lens. Tell me what inspired you to really start on this journey.
Well, I'm always a fan of our origin story. I think that our origin story in many ways is our ethos. We just did a walking tour, one of our first public walking tours recently, and we just talked about how we center the question on our walks. It's not about the guide being the preeminent thinker or arbiter of all knowledge. It's about, discovering through questions, through community, through discussion. And that's how we got started. It was a question by somebody who's probably like 23, 24 now, but she was 11 years old or so in 2008. And I was working at a museum here in New York City in the Lower East Side. And I love stories. I love people. I'm talking about German, Jewish, and Italian stories in 1800s New York. And this, bus of Black kids from Brooklyn came in and did what Brooklyn people do. Just, switched it up. It was like, she asked the question like, where's the Black people after 90 minutes of discourse on immigrant narratives? And that just like blew me away. My son was close to her age. And as an educator, as a pedagogue, taught full-time in schools, the questions of children put you at that nexus of your own learning. And so I was like, how did I go 90 minutes and not think about the fact that I'm talking to Black students from Brooklyn, but never mention Black history? And so I'm excited to work with the Apollo Theater and really just expand on the origins of Harlem, understanding that there's been an African presence on this island since the 1600s.
Well, with that being said, Kamau, I'd love for you, for us to share a bit of an example of your work. I know that if you can just share a little bit about Fighting Dark, and we'll take a little watch.
Indeed. Well, they say, necessity, creates a lot of inventions. And part of what happened last year is I was unable to give walks. And so being unable to give walks, I had to basically find other ways to do it. And I think the Shed, to their credit, were like, hey, let's find a way to take your walking tour and put it online. And that's where I was able to create Fighting Dark with other collaborators. And so what you're going to see right now is some of the violence that really leads Black people to moving up Manhattan into what is now, the mecca of Black culture.
Great.
By 1860, New York City was mostly controlled by the Democratic Party that did not want to see Black people free from slavery. There were strong financial ties to the cotton industry in the South, and the working class whites were told that free Blacks would take over their jobs, fueling racial animosity. We took a moment and looked at the fountain in City Hall Park made by Jeffrey Raymold, who was born 1825. We stopped and we pondered about the long-lasting effects of having a major public work like Erie Canal, or even the creation of the aqueduct that preceded the abolition of slavery in New York State in 1827. Most of the city's papers were on Park Row, and many of them took sides on slavery throughout the Civil War. People like Horace Greeley, publisher of the New York Tribune, was a Republican paper that pushed for the end of slavery. He was hunted during the riot, and also the Tribune was attacked by the rioters right here across from City Hall. The Republican mayor at the time, George Opdyke, fled City Hall in fear for his life when the rioters gathered at City Park. Hundreds of Black New Yorkers will flee to the Black community of Weeksville, which is located in Brooklyn. There were hundreds of Black families in Weeksville at the time that lived miles from New York, in particular for safety. Black families, including Black children in New York, were under constant threat during the riots.
Wow, that was such a great example of your work, Kamau, and just the brilliance that oozes from the Black Gotham Experience. I always say this is that, Apollo is taking a lot of inspiration from the way in which you work, and that we're looking back to look forward in our 87th year. We're looking back specifically at the Harlem Renaissance in order to look forward towards our own future. And so if you could talk a little bit about your commission and how you're taking inspiration from that period in our history to look forward and tell our story.
Totally. I mean, it's mutual, and the Apollo is such a legendary institution. Harlem is such an amazing place to learn. It is an active Black archive. A lot of times when we're in Lower Manhattan, I ask people to close their eyes and imagine living in a certain time period, to open their senses, open their heart up. Walking is very much a spiritual act, an investigative act to move forward and take steps. And a lot of times we're walking with our hearts more than we're walking with our feet. And so moving through spaces and opening up your mind and your body and your soul to other narratives that might not be in the artifacts, might not be in the flat file. And when you walk through an active live scene like Harlem, you don't have to really imagine but so much, because the content and the material and the culture is live and vibrant. And so when I think about going through Harlem and having a chance to turn our ears on as a walk is being expressed and being shared, I think about the power of sonics in that situation, how we can map Harlem, how we can take some of the history and find a way to put that in a sonic form that can be shared in a digital way, similar to the piece that you just showed. And so I think there's a lot of power in the individual standing and listening to the soul of Harlem, context, but also being able to sound map different locations of Harlem and produce records, so to speak, literal records that actually are sonic based, but have all that protein in there for your ear.
That's, oh my goodness. The streets are talking, the streets are singing. There was a quote, I believe it was in your in your concept paper about, mapping the sound of Harlem and the Apollo becomes the drum.
Oh yeah. I think that is 100% something I've been looking around did somebody say that before I said that? I want to give credit if that is the case, but it felt so organic. But the way I look at it, and I talk to people about it, is that Harlem is the rhythm section of the Black diaspora.
Yeah.
And the Apollo is the percussion. It is that drum beat.
Yeah.
To this moment. And so to be able to consider how you represent a bicentennial that celebrates Harlem and the Apollo, it can be overwhelming a little bit. How do you do that? Yeah. And that's where it's I'm going to be digging through records. I'm going through records, listening to records. And then somehow I think during the lockdown, during some personal development, I was you know what, maybe even though it's going to be a walk and have visuals, let's elevate the sonics and find a way to capture the sound of some of this history, replicate it, sound map it, so that people get a chance to have records to listen to that can be an additional element to the walking and listening in real time. So it's something that can be overwhelming because you're such a, being a student of history. And when I talk to my collaborators, people are Harlem, Apollo, Bison, that whole thing is, they're man, they start stuttering. What are you talking about? It's calm down. We have an organizing principle to get through this major epic project. And it's inspiring all of us. And I'm looking forward to being able to share pieces of it and then, of course, have the whole offering to engage.
Well, I can't wait to experience that drum beat, that rhythm section, and all of the fruits of the knowledge that you will be providing. So this is going to be really exciting, Kamau. And so thank you for being on this journey with us.
Oh, listen, we're all walking in the same direction, as Mos Def would say. I heard him say that once. I love that because I love walking.
Yeah.
No matter where we are, we're all moving in the same direction. And so it's an honor to like have people to meet up in the meadow and be on the same, catch the same wind.
That's it. That's it. Walking towards the light. Here we go. Ooh, poet. Well, thank you so much, Kamau. And with that being said, I'd like to now toss it to our Senior Director of Programming, Ms. Leatrice Elsie Wright.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Camila. Next, Jodine Dorsey sits down with Soul Science Lab's Chinlo and Asante Amin and director Awoye Tempo to discuss their Apollo New Works commission, the Black Renaissance Mixtape.
Thank you, Leatrice Elsie. Hello, everyone. My name is Jodine Dorsey. I'm your host for the Apollo Music Cafe, and we are here to discuss the Apollo Theater Commission new piece, the Renaissance Mixtape, with Soul Science Lab. I'd like to welcome to the screen with me Asante Amin, Chinlo, and Awoye Tempo. How are you all? How are y'all doing?
Feels great.
So
Feels good to be here.
see you.
Definitely. Thank you all for having us.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind just taking a quick intro of each of you, Asante, starting off with you, if you could tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do, and then Chinlo and Awoye, if you could follow.
And of course, I just have to start off again by expressing my gratitude and excitement for being here. Can't say it enough. You know what I'm saying? But my name is Asante Amin, of course, one half of the Mighty Soul Science Lab, along with my brother. And I'm a multi-instrumentalist, composer, producer, educator, all around creative, and of course, just strive to be a good human. You know what I'm saying? My brother. And I'm Chinlo. I'm the other half of Soul Science Lab, creative director, MC, songwriter, educator, and just love being creative.
And hey, I'm Awoye Tempo. I'm trying to become another third of the Soul Science.
You got it. Yeah, you're in. You made it.
Because I just get to kind of hang out and create and think and ponder and dream with these guys, which has been amazing.
So what is the Renaissance Mixtape?
Thanks for asking that question, Jodine. The Renaissance Mixtape is an immersive musical theater piece. And to give it some context, you were around when we created Soundtrack 63, and you know that one of our signature methods of storytelling is using music and some sort of technology or visual installation to tell a story. And we infuse that with themes of, social themes, political themes, cultural themes to tell specific stories. This time, we're talking about the Harlem Renaissance, and we're looking at the centennial of the Harlem Renaissance, 100 years ago, what was happening then, but through a contemporary lens. Where are we 100 years since the Harlem Renaissance, and where will we be 100 years from now? And to help us tell this story, we always have to experiment, take it to the next level, and push the envelope. We're using something called mixed reality or extended reality to really enhance the immersive experience of the audience when they come.
Asante, why this time period to you to glorify or celebrate or magnify?
I think in the psychological mythos of Black people, the Harlem Renaissance occupies a really beautiful place. And so to me, it's fertile ground to examine and interrogate. But for us, it's really interesting because, as Chin just said, we're 100 years outside of the Harlem Renaissance. And one of the questions we always like to ask in understanding factors that contribute to history is, what produced a particular historical phenomenon? How much have things changed? Are things beneficial? And how can we continue to create a reality of our liking, right? So as we looked at the Harlem Renaissance happening 100 years ago, and then we're at the moment we're in with a pandemic, with a quarantine, with so much digital technological innovation happening, we want to project a future where Black people are intentionally a part of that, and intentionally a part of innovating technology for the future. And we know that, like, connected to these very difficult passages of time, we create solutions, we innovate.
Right.
So we're at the cusp of a new renaissance right now, and we're wondering what it looks like and what role it will have. And I think for us, it's exciting to interrogate those things artistically. As Chin said, we have a Woye. She's like coach, psychologist, therapist, you know what I'm saying, dramaturge, etc. And she's helping us not only look at history and tell a story very creative in terms of a musical, but she's helping us examine our lives in this continuum of Black life as it evolves as living pieces of history. And so we've been very intentional about Chin and I exploring our story within the context of the larger Black continuum and the aspirations and ambitions we have as we look at migrating around the world and even in spiritual places to find our freedom, essentially, to find our Freedom Day, as Max Roach and Abby Lincoln so eloquently, articulated years ago.
Right. And Owoye, I'm listening to these brothers talk about this huge project, taking history, technology, Afrofuturism, all the words that you can think about, and then say, let's make something artistic and creative here. How do you do it, Owoye? How do you do it? What do you do?
The first step always, I feel like, is just surrounding yourself with good people, and smart people and curious people. And I feel like that's really what we've done. I feel very just lucky and honored to just be in space with these guys, to just be able to ask these questions and to say, what are we thinking about? How can we even go deeper inside what that story is and see what we can uncover there? We just go down rabbit holes, and then we just uncover beautiful, gorgeous gems. And then we think about, how do we want to bring those gems to life? And, we have an awesome team of people who are experts in mixed reality, extended reality. The team is just continuing to grow, and we're just building. And as we go, we say, what do we need over here? What do we need over here? Oh, we got to shine a light on that story over there. It just feels like we're on this amazing, unending journey, and we just get to figure out, where do we want to shine a light? It's really cool. And then the music is amazing and incredible. And then we just jam. It's the whole thing is just
it's a jam. Yeah,
it's just a jam.
So talking about this jam session, you all have a video you want to show.
Definitely.
Chinbo, can you set us up with this video?
For sure. This video is a culminating moment from our residency at the Apollo Theater this past May 2021, where we had an opportunity to come together and actually work out some of the songs, some of the text, and we created an intro number that has 3 different songs in it, and you're probably only going to hear a portion of one, but enjoy it.
Fantastic. And here is the Renaissance mixtape video from the Apollo Theater Commission.
I'm on a migration. To follow my dream. To find a salvation. I'm trying to get free.
I said I gotta get it free.
I left the plantation.
I had to leave that old plantation.
They can't hold me.
Come on.
I said pack my bags, I'm on my way. I'm gonna have my freedom. I'm on a migration. To follow my dream.
I'm
finding salvation.
I said I'm finding salvation.
I'm trying to get free.
I said we gotta get free.
I'm off the plantation.
I left that plantation.
They can't hold me.
They can't hold me.
I said pack my bags, I'm on my way. I'm gonna have my freedom day.
Woo! I mean, to keep it real, seem like life been trash. My memories are painful, and to keep it honest, I'd rather just leave it in the past.
And I'm leaving all that stress and all that being depressed. It's time for me to find some joy, a little bit of happiness.
Lord, I've been through some shit, and my mama know I'm a fighter. My situation is dark, but I feel like up north the future is brighter.
Yeah. And I ain't trying to march, and I ain't gonna scream. I just wanna go to a place where I can live my dream. I'm on a migration. To follow my dream.
Gotta follow my dream.
I'm finding salvation.
I found my salvation.
I'm trying to get free.
I said I gotta be free.
I left the plantation.
I left that plantation.
They can't hold me.
They'll never be able to hold me.
I said, pack my bags, I'm on my way. I'm gonna have my freedom. I'm on a migration to follow my dream.
To follow my dream.
I'm finding salvation.
I'm finding salvation.
I'm trying to get free.
I said I'm trying to get free.
I left that plantation.
I left the plantation.
They can't hold me.
They can't hold me.
I said, pack my bags, I'm on my way. I'm gonna have my freedom day. Against the wall. I cannot fall, they keep bumping me against the wall. Oh yeah, but I refuse to fall, they keep bumping me against the wall.
They big man.
Wall. But I ain't gonna fall. Pack my bags, I'm on my way. I'm gonna have my freedom day. Pack my bags, I'm on my way. I'm gonna have my freedom day. Pack my bags, I'm on my way. I'm gonna have my freedom day. Pack my bags, I'm on my way. I'm gonna have my freedom day. Pack my bags, I'm on my way.
Pack my bags, I'm on my way.
I'm gonna have my freedom day.
I'm gonna have my freedom day.
Pack my bags, I'm on my way.
Pack my bags, I'm on my way.
I'm gonna have my freedom day.
I'm gonna have my freedom.
Wow. 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 That was fantastic. I am so excited about seeing this in real life.
Thank you. Yeah, we are too.
Right.
But it's coming to life though. And that process was a really important part of helping us really get it on its feet.
Right. You know, I want to take a step back because we're talking about your new work. If people go onto your website, they're going to see Soul Science Lab. What is Soul Science Lab? I know you two say you're partners, but what exactly is Soul Science Lab? Is it a group? Is it a movement? What would you define it as?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. All of that.
Right.
Yes.
And I mean, in a nutshell, Soul Science Lab is a music and multimedia production company. And of course, we focus on music. We're musicians, so, you know, we're always creating music for ourselves and others as well. And we focus on these, we call them like iconic projects, these commissions like the Renaissance Mixtape. And we've been blessed to do a few with some large cultural arts institutions and produce those. So Soundtrack 63 was one, the Renaissance Mixtape is another, Make a Joyful Noise is another. And so, you know, we're building these things that can outlast who we are. And, you know, we'll live on long after we're gone. And the last piece of what we do is education. So we're about, you know, educating and passing the torch to the next generation of iconic artists, making sure they're equipped with the tools necessary to do that. Me and my brother just trying to do good work.
Yeah, and I think in general, to add to that, with this storytellers inspiring the future, and I think one pivotal question that always brings Chen and I back to the table is around how can we inspire people to create their own reality? How can we inspire people to reimagine what their lives can look like? And essentially, Soul Science, you know, Chen just articulated kind of like the nuts and the bolts, the very technical aspects of what we do. But it's really a guiding philosophy and idea we live by that we were able to like give a name to, and we use it as a conduit to kind of like create our own reality. And to us, it's just consistent with the way Black folk deal with themselves and the universe. It's one that says our art is functional, our art is intentional, and we can use art as a conduit to bring material into fruition. And I think at the end, beginning, middle of the day, that's at the crux of everything and all of the questions we ask. It's about trying to get our people, help our people get back on the code, You know what I'm saying? That we gave really to the world. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But we use all of these vehicles to try to articulate that as much as we can. You know what I'm saying?
That's wonderful, and I love to hear how it's just more than just a group. It's a movement. Like I said before, it's definitely a movement. Owoye, as you step into this role with the Renaissance Mixtape, working with these two brilliant creators, what thumbprint do you want to leave on this project?
Oh, I love that question. You know what? I think that the guys have set up something pretty extraordinary in just what their kind of mission as people is in the world and as artists. And I think part of the reason that it's been so fun is that there's a kind of like alignment, you know. I think that these guys are kind of grand experimenters, but also you know, that they say soul in the title of the thing that they do, you know. There are people who are connected to it's called soul science, you know.
Right.
It's about being connected to a very deep ancient energy of who we all are, what our potential is, what possibility is, but without surrendering at any moment. It's always guided by a search for something, a search for what else could it be? How else can we take the thing? You know, we're a Sankofa people. How can we really dig into what came before, but also keep building on that possibility that the people who laid for us have built for us? So, you know, I feel that in this process, if what we can do is continue to infuse the world with that energy and continue to invite people into an imagination of a thing, I think that we'll be on a good course.
Absolutely. This is going to be such a great course. I am so ready to see this work in real life. I'm so ready. I want to thank Apollo Theater for commissioning this work. I want to thank you guys for just having that vision to bring the Renaissance Mixtape to life. And Owoye, I'm excited about the feminine energy you will bring to this project.
Yeah, I mean,
come on.
Yes,
that's
So
right.
thank you guys so much. This has been so real. And I'm going to just go ahead and bring it back to Leatrice. Thank you so much, you guys.
Jodine, thank you. Love you.
Thank you, Jodine.
Thank you.
Keith Joseph Atkins is the artistic director and a founder of the New Black Fest. The New Black Fest is considered a movement, a call to action. Inspired by the state of Black theater in the 21st century, it's a bold step motivated by a growing need within the Black theater community for serious change and boundless opportunity. I want to welcome Keith Atkins to the Apollo digital stage.
Hello, so yes, I'm Keith Joseph Atkins. I am the artistic director of the New Black Fest, a 10-year theater organization committed to diverse voices and insurgent voices throughout the African diaspora. 2 years ago, Camila Forbes reached out to me, Camila Forbes, obviously of Your Apollo, reached out to me about commissioning me to curate a festival or a group of plays that spoke to the new Black Renaissance, the new Harlem Renaissance. She was very interested in how artists today are looking at the world, what's informing them, what's impacting them, what they're resonating about, what they're meditating about. And so I was obviously extremely excited because the New Black Fest mission in the last 5 years has been commissioning new work, particularly around social justice issues. And this gave me an opportunity to knock on the doors of so many artists and writers that I absolutely love and fanboy around often, and ask them to think about what it means to be an artist today, what it means to be an artist in this pandemic world, this incredibly important social justice movement, and also just simply what it means to be an artist in the world, period. And I reached out to many, 18 to be exact, and 3 of them, obviously, we're going to talk to today, and they are James Imes, Lauren Whitehead, and Dalek Braithwaite. All incredible artists, incredibly, just inspired by the work that they created from this prompt. And, and I was really looking forward to sharing these pieces with the world, basically. So now that we're all here, I just kind of want to, pick you guys' brains around process and purpose, right? And I'll start with you, James. What did you think? What came to mind and heart when I initially reached out to you about writing a piece that inspired sort of a new Black Renaissance?
Yeah, I thought about it for a long time, and I mulled it over, and I wasn't really sure what one thing I wanted to focus on, because I think the list of things is pretty vast right now. And then I started to meditate on the amount of art consumption and production in the history of the world that is possible because of the subjugation, theft, selling, and commerce of the Black body all over the globe. And so I started to think about what is the most extravagant way in which to reclaim that. And the first thing that came to mind is I'm going to walk into a museum and I'm going to take a Rembrandt off the wall, because that art is not possible without, millions of Black people being sold into slavery, being brutalized. And, not to pick exclusively on the Dutch, they just happen to be particularly good at this particular kind of carnage. And, right. If you live in proximity to New York City, that pipeline is pretty direct. So I wanted to think about Harlem. What's the name of Harlem? Harlem is a Dutch name. It's a Dutch word. And so that's how I came to this idea. Also, I happen to be just really thinking about art museums in particular at that moment. So all of those things sort of converged, and that's how the play came about.
Absolutely, I love that. Yeah, I love your piece. One of my faves. Let me spin over to Lauren. Lauren, so happy that you said yes, and I'm very curious about what was the impetus behind your piece, Cliff and Clara and her baby. What was driving you to write that?
Yeah, so it's always a million different things. I think chief among them is that I had a child of my own 2 years ago, and I just really wanted to see or make it possible for a pregnant body to be on stage. I just feel like I don't see that enough, and I'm interested in what that is and what that looks like. And so that was one thing. I knew I wanted to put a pregnant person on stage. And then I think, the two other things that were happening for me, one was in thinking about Renaissance, it always is tied to me to protest. And I think there's a lot of invisible labor that goes into protest, things that we don't actually see, all the prep work that it takes to make meaningful and impactful and successful protests, right? So I think all the time about how, during the civil rights movement, they had people whose sole job it was to catch bricks. That's the kind of shit that I don't think we think about all the time, the kind of full 360-degree thinking. And so I wanted to try to make that kind of protest prep visible on a pregnant body in some ways. And then, the last thing I was thinking about was just the amount of anxiety that I had while I was pregnant, just by virtue of being a Black woman in America and having one of the highest Black maternal mortality rates, and just the crisis of Black maternal care. And I was thinking just a lot about that anxiety, and then sort of channeling what it would have meant to be that pregnant, that afraid during summer of 2020, when there were protests and pandemics and all kinds of things happening. And so a lot of things were going into that and into my thinking about it. And I really just wanted to make a play that showed all the prep that Black women do to care for themselves with that amount of anxiety on their brains, and the sort of amount of crisis that's happening outside their doors. And it's sort of manifested in the presence of a mouse in their apartment.
Yeah, I love that.
But I really just wanted to both show a Black woman taking care of herself and how hard it is to advocate in order to find space and time to do that while everything else is happening all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. I can't wait to folks peek at it. It's quite a very beautifully told and very important story. Dalek, let me leap over to you. Kind of the same question around what was the why of your piece. I'll let you sort of talk about it. I won't say anything, but very curious about the why and how that why is really important now, in this sort of new renaissance, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I first read your prompt, I was thinking about the Harlem Renaissance as it existed in history, and so I was like, what could I conjure from that time? And then I really started to shift my focus on another thing that you mentioned in the prompt, is like just how those artists focus on what was now to them, what is now to you. And so, so I just, coming from this experience of the pandemic, of people, myself included, being locked alone in a room, communicating through the mediums of, of robots and just, online platforms and not being able to have personal connection. And then just also how that plays into misinformation, how that plays into radicalization, how that plays into people living inside of their own bubbles and creating their own truths within their own bubbles, and just the lack of trust in general. And so like how that feeds into a young Black man's story in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of protests, in the midst of state violence once again. What does that look like? What does that morning look like on a macro level, and also on a micro level?
Right. Yeah, I love it, you guys. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, all three pieces serve very different purposes in regards to what's important in this moment in our history. From the deconstruction of American genealogy and worldwide genealogy, to claiming being center of that when we were often sort of erased from the very thing that we were basically making happen, to just, an amazing conversation about, but, I mean, I can talk, all night long about your pieces because they all resonate really beautifully. So let's, here's some of the work. I would love to share that. And we'll start with you, James, your piece, Rump Jar. And we're gonna probably, I think, like a minute or two, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so to set this up, this is from Rump Jar. And this is a scene between Jean and Vance. Jean is a security guard at a museum, and Vance is an art student who is visiting. Jean. Who? Vance. The woman in the painting. That's Dina Vinke. Her husband was a Dutch businessman who lost everything in the tulip crash and then made his fortune in the trade of African people. He had this painting done to commemorate the birth of their first child, Jean. Oh, interesting. Vance. It is. The ship in the background there, do you see it? Jean. Yes. Vance. It's called De Wude, which translates to the widow. On the ship's final voyage from Ghana to the Dutch colonies in the Caribbean, an illness ripped through the ship, and the captain, Dina's husband, made the executive decision to throw all of the sick captives overboard in order to recoup the insurance on the cargo. The people. Jean. That really happened? Vance. It did. So when the ship finally made it to the port in New Amsterdam, a woman disembarked. I don't know what her name was, but they called her Lucky because she had survived the ordeal. She gave birth to Hank, who begat Winnie and Grace. Grace was sold to a planter in Georgia who took a fancy to lighting the skirt tails of the servant girls on fire to watch them run. Her daughter's name was Ishtar, and she had a slew of boys, the youngest being Caleb, who had nothing but girls, much to the chagrin of the planter. His oldest daughter, Patsy, bore many children. Somebody say she was pregnant the majority of her life. Tonk, her last son, was sold off to a planter who was also a senator in the Congress of the new nation he lived in called the United States. It goes on from there. Peg and Willie and Marcellus and Caesar and Placidly and Harmony and Grace again. But Hubert, Jr., knew nothing of slavery, and his daughter Grace gave birth to an intrepid young woman she named Helen. who worked her way through school and married a man who worked as hard as she did, and they had a daughter who they encouraged to follow her dreams. And here I is. Gene, you, Vance, me, Gene. How do you know all of that? Vance, I'm really good at research. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, to James's piece, Rump Jar, the excerpt from it, and I'm so looking forward to hearing the rest of it. Such an important piece about genealogy, American history, global history, Black people being centered in our own history and reclaiming our history, and reclaiming what belongs to us. So great piece. Up next, Lauren A. Whitehead's Cliff and Clara and Her Baby.
All right, so just a touch of setup here. Cliff has been promising to take care of the mouse that has shown up in him and Clara's apartment, and he hasn't done it. So right before this moment, a package arrives, and in the package are mouse traps that Clara has ordered. She says, well, fucking when, Cliff? When? When exactly were you going to handle it? Because I've been talking about the mouse for weeks now. Weeks. I've been pregnant for months, in hip and back and chest pain for months, and saying to you every day that between the helicopters and firecrackers and nosy ass Teresa next door telling me that our hospital of choice is an absolute death trap for pregnant Black women, every day I've been telling you that I can't sleep because of my belly, and also because all night long I hear the scurrying fucking mouse behind the wall. So like, I just got tired of waiting, and I decided to order the mouse traps on my own. I just decided to take care of it. Cliff. So all this time that I've been building cribs and bassinets and car seats and bolting bookshelves into the walls while you've been making me go through these traumatic ass scenarios over and over again, imagining your death, imagining bringing home our baby without you. All this time you've been making me practice my little speeches. Doctor, my wife is still in pain and we need you to do something. Sir, if she says she's still funny, then I would like for you to check again. No, check again, check again, check again, check again. Like I wouldn't have the wherewithal to handle it if something goes wrong at the hospital. All this time I've been doing all that, and somewhere in your head you've got your own separate plan to take care of it yourself. And so what if I do, Cliff? You know, not everything is about your fragile manhood, okay? Not everything is about you. It's about the facts. And the fact is, I could die in there, okay? It's a real thing. I could die on that table. I could die on the sidewalk on the way to that table. I could die in a library or in a church or in my car driving to the grocery store, and I don't want to die. All I want to do is hold this baby that I've been building in my body for all this time without some rabies-ridden rodent in my kitchen. Thank you.
Yes. Such a great piece. Such a great excerpt from that piece, Lauren, just about, you know, the testimony of Black motherhood, you know, in this crazy times where there's so many variables that attempt to break women down. So I really love that piece. Next up is Days by Dalek Braithwaite.
So just to give you a little setup, this is about two twin brothers, Marcus and Raymond. Marcus is a sort of Micah X, Dallas police shooter, and Marcus has killed a policeman, and in revenge, of course, the police have killed him, and Raymond is dealing with his loss. And he locks himself up in a room, and he's just watching his whole history, his whole online history in his room. And one of the videos that comes up, he keeps playing, and he recites one of Marcus's videos that he recorded before he committed the act of murder. This is the 29th day of Raymond locking himself up in his deceased brother's room. His appearance should reflect that. Murder's the final way of saying no. I'm paraphrasing some statement things get lost in translation, but still, that's just how it go. I don't know. Can't indict the cop, he just following the chain of command. Like a kid drowning in the ocean and blaming it on a grain of sand. The chain of command goes up to the chief points to the mayor, and there's relief. He gives a speech, says sorry for grief, but there must be peace. Those would be the wishes of the deceased. Like he knew the man, like he knew the girl. But nothing's new in the world, so nothing's new to say. He points to the DA, who used to work for the DEA and probably volunteers at the VA, says he'll collect the evidence, assess against the precedents, and get to the essence to demonstrate a theory, a conclusion. And the sentiment is this nigga was crazy. This nigga was stupid. This nigga was high. He had a delusion. You know how niggas are. You know how niggas get. And what would you do in their position? I could probably bet. The DA points to the dead body lying on the street with no arms on him, but the arms that came with his feet. And the case is complete. Chain of command comes all the way down to you. You share the same colors, nigga. Black and blue, black and blue, black and blues. Who gonna lose? Last on the picking order, always with a picking sign, always taking order. So of course we take the sacrifice. Do we matter? Kind of sort of ought to be half as nice. My kind been too kind, saying that's just how it go. But murder's the final way of saying no. Lights, man.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful work, man. Beautiful work.
Thank you.
Such an incredible, I hate using the word fiery, so let me find another word, incendiary, piece of testament to the policing of our bodies, of our youth, of our Black men, man. I can't wait to hear the whole piece, for everybody else to hear that whole piece, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's been great. Thank you for this time.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Keith, James, Lauren, and Dalak. We look forward to experiencing these new works. What a perfect way to end this sneak peek into the creative minds of these brilliant artists. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've been as inspired by these artists and their works as we are. We look forward to presenting them to you, and we encourage you to Google them. Learn more about them, follow them on social media. That's going to do it for us. And remember, you can support this initiative as well as other artistic and educational initiatives at the Apollo by donating today. The Apollo is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and your donation is tax deductible. So we thank you in advance for your support. I'm Leatrice Elzie, Senior Director of Programming at the Apollo Theater. I'll see you next time.
you.